Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we'll be previewing the Cal Golden Bears, who are in their first season in the ACC. They left the Pac-12 after the conference was basically ripped apart by realignment with USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, and then followed by Oregon and Washington after they realized that they weren't going to be able to get a major TV deal. And then Cal and Stanford, after not being part of the section of the Pac-12 that were moving over to the Big 12 with Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State, they realized that their only real hope was to join the ACC. So now they begin a new era. Last year's team was very interesting. Jadyn Ott obviously was the big standout, rushing for over 1,000 yards last year. And they had some troubles finding a permanent starter at quarterback. And they found one in Mendoza, and although he generated a lot of points for the offense, where they averaged 41 points a game, he also had a lot of turnovers. And so the big thing this year is limiting them so that they can actually have a winning in-conference record, which in the Pac-12 they had 14 consecutive losing conference record in their season. So, very much looking to improve that in the ACC. Key departures, though, Jeremiah Hunter, you lose him to Washington, I believe, along with a few other players. Sam Jackson V, another wide receiver that's gone. Tight ends, Marquis Montgomery and Andy Alfieri. Cornerback, Kalen Moore and Cy Vajrawale III. And then linebacker, Caleb Larms-Orr. And the defense last season gave up almost 33 points per game. And although they had a lot of turnovers, they were still very vulnerable to the passing game, with the secondary not playing very well and the pass rush not creating pressure on the quarterback. And so really you're looking for them to take steps on the defensive side where they don't have to rely on just turnovers. They can also get 3 and outs and make stops to force punts rather than having to rely on an interception or a fumble recovery. But Jadyn Ott is going to be a weapon for the Golden Bears. Their running game is going to be really good with that offensive line. They do have a new offensive coordinator in Mike Bloch, and he has quite a few things to work with in terms of the running game. The passing game, you have Mendoza as an option. With the arrivals, you bring in Chandler Rogers to have a bit of a quarterback battle. And then running back Kadarius Callaway, a 4-star running back, to be a backup to Ott. And they're going to be very deep at the running back position. Wide receiver Mikey Matthews and Tobias Merriweather are going to be good options at wide receiver. Although I think, and I've talked about this before with teams like Miami and NC State, where you have to have a little bit of concern about chemistry and things not exactly lining up. And in the case of Cal, it's also a worry because you have a new offensive coordinator, where this NC State and Miami don't have the same problem because they have new players, but the staff there offensively has been at least there for a season or two. In the case of NC State, Robert Anae, this is his second year now at NC State. And then in Cal's case, like I said, you have a new offensive coordinator, so I think it will mesh for them eventually, but there might be some growing pains. Strengths for the team, running back, offensive lineman. I think you will be a very good running team this season with the running backs that you can rotate and Jadyn Ott being your starter. No worries about running the football. Passing the football might be a concern, but I don't think it'll be a weakness necessarily. I can't confidently say that it'll be a strength, though. And then weaknesses, your secondary and your pass rush. If you don't have the same amount of turnover rate and you are still having defensive problems, this is going to be a very rough year for the Golden Bears. But let's go ahead and get into the schedule. You start off week 1 with UC Davis. I don't see you really having any problem with them. They are not as talented as you, and you'll be able to run right past them with Ott and Callaway. This should be fine. This should be a really good tune-up game for you. You follow that up with a road game at Auburn, though. Auburn was a really weird team last year. You played them at home. It was a really close game. It was like 14-7, and you could have won it. I think there was an interception right at the end that you had that basically cost you the game. It sealed the game for Auburn. And then Auburn lost to like New Mexico State. So depending on what Auburn team you get, you could beat them, but I think they'll be improved from last year with Freeze just continuing to get more 4 and 5 star recruits to commit to Auburn, and I think you take a loss to the Tigers. Going to Auburn is supposed to be a really hard place to win. You saw what happened to Alabama and Georgia, barely escaping. But like I said, losing to New Mexico State, like really head scratching, really weird. So I don't know, but I'll have you down for a loss for now. But if you get lucky, maybe you can win that game. Then you take on San Diego State. I definitely believe that you can win this game. I think it'll be fairly easy. San Diego State sometimes is a really good group of 5 team, but in recent years, they haven't been as good. So I think you will be able to get the win. Then you go on the road at Florida State. This has to be a loss. I mean, Florida State is so much more established in this conference. You're going to Doak Campbell for the first time as a conference member. Really, really hard place to win. They'll have DJ Uiagalelei and that defense under Norvell. A loss. And then you have your bye week and you host Miami after that. Although you get the bye week, I think you'll play a close game with the Hurricanes. Cam Ward will be a little under duress with that offense and the team having to travel so far. But eventually they will get it going and they will beat you. Another loss. Then you go on the road at Pittsburgh. If this were at home, I'd definitely pick you. I think Pittsburgh will be much improved from last year. They won't be an amazing team, but since you're on the road and it's so far, I think you take a loss. Then you come back home and you play a really good NC State team. And like Miami, they will have some struggles in the game. But with Grayson McCall being the veteran that he is, and in a similar situation to Cam Ward, eventually they will figure it out with that passing game and also that running game that NC State's going to have with Jordan Waters and Kendrick Raphael. They'll be able to get some momentum and they'll be able to win the game. So another loss. Then you take on Oregon State. Oregon State was a good team last year, but now that DJ Uiagalelei and a lot of the players are gone because they're no longer in a power conference, they've lost a lot of talent there. And you're at home. I think you'll be able to get the win. I have you winning against the Beavers. Then you have your bye week and you go on the road at Wake Forest. Similar situation to Pitt. If you're at home, I think you win this game. But since you're on the road, and they're also going to be improved with Hank Bachmeier taking over for Mitch Griffiths, they have Donovan Green, who's going to be a legitimate wideout threat for the Deacons this year, and DeMont Claiborne, who can get really good gains at the running back position. They'll be able to beat you, and you take a loss. Then you take on Syracuse under the direction of new head coach Fran Brown from Georgia. They have Kyle McCord at quarterback and tight end Rondé Gadsden, who's one of the best tight ends in the conference and in the country. But I think you upset them. I think Mendoza or even Rogers, depending on who the starter is, does enough. I think Jadyn Ott has a great game along with Callaway rotating in, and the defense creates enough turnovers to get the win against the Orange. Then you have the big rivalry game against Stanford, and I think Stanford is much worse than you are. especially with the fact that they lost to Sacramento State last year, an FCS opponent. I think you easily win the game and let them know that the Bay Area is Bear territory. Then you finish off with a road game at SMU. SMU has Preston Stone in that electric offense that's going to light up the scoreboard this year. I think you are very vulnerable to that still with the secondary and the pass rush, and you take a loss. So I have you going 5-7 with a 2-6 conference record, which is not horrible. You do miss out on a bowl game, but I still think you have a lot of talent. And I think some of these games, I think you can win the Pittsburgh game. I think you can win the Wake Forest game. Maybe even the Auburn game if you show up and you get lucky and they're really, really flat. And you could definitely make a bowl game, obviously, with only needing one win. If all of these wins that I predicted go your way, then it's definitely possible. But I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.